So, Anthony, I want to follow with a question, which is this issue of it bleeding into the criminal justice system across the board for other kinds of crimes. Do you think we've already seen that? Because one of the things that's happening with the civilian military courts discussion or debate is that we've had the discussion of Miranda. We've had this, or not. We've had the discussion of preventive detention. We have the overall discussion of what it means to close Guantanamo. Does moving them actually close it? And so, are we going to try anybody in civilian courts is also out there as a question. Right. And so, really, what I want to ask you is: do you see that eroding already, or do you think it's still something in the future?
No, I think you're exactly right. It's eroding already. The question of either though codifying it into law, and doing so either with a Democratic president or a Democratic Congress makes the exceptions and the holes that have already been poked through the Fourth and Fifth Amendment that much larger that you can drive a truck through them. And what is remarkable is the lack of public outcry. I will give you one anecdote on this one. I was dealing with budgets. Part of my job is to run an organization in this economy, which is not often easy. So in times where I have to go underground and go underwater, I don't pay as close attention to the emails or the blogs. And I got a phone call from someone in the government, in law enforcement, in my cell phone in the morning, saying, "Where the hell are you on this underwear bomber?" And I said, "Well, there's nothing for me to do. You arrested the guy, you read him his rights. It's the way it's supposed to work." And I was told, "No, we're getting clobbered on the Hill and in the press for having read him his rights. We need to hear from you," which is incredible. Usually I get phone calls that ask me to stay out of a controversy. They don't ask me to jump into it. But ironically, here we are in a context where law enforcement did it the way the FBI did it, exactly the way they were supposed to. A guy on American soil, which we might disagree, Mo, in an airplane in Detroit, tries to blow up his fellow passengers. You kind of have to read him his rights. That's not a discretionary rule. You got to charge him with a crime. He's in America. He's on American soil. Even if he's not an American, he's on American soil, and we've established that. We have lots of undocumented immigrants who break the law, and yet we don't not read them their rights or hold them without charges or trial. And that's why the exceptions that could be that if you allow non-citizens to be apprehended for these narrow cases where they're not read their Miranda rights, we'll be seeing a lot more of that, I think, with your ordinary Mexican undocumented immigrant under a DWI case in future years. And I think the possibility of that morphing it's certainly borne out by the facts that we've seen in the aftermath of 9/11. Look at the immigration enforcement issue, the massive deportation of immigrants in the aftermath of 9/11 who had nothing to do with terrorism. And it's when you ever get that fear-mongering and those lax enforcement of the rules, you're going to see it play out.
Of course, we're going to get to your questions. I just want to make a comment. The Patriot Act has not gone away.
No.
And how the future in the Patriot Act deals with so many of these issues is in all part of the conversation that we're never going to get to.
Obama defended every one of the powers that were up for renewal in the Patriot Act. And the most we could do was to shorten the time period whereby we can take another bite at that apple. But they made the same arguments for the very same powers that were put in place under the Bush years. There's very little substantive difference in the policies and pronouncements of the Justice Department and national security issues when you look at some of these cases. The Jefferson Data Plan case, our rendition case, same arguments, same clown, different clown, same circus, let's say.
But just...
I'm being provocative.
No, there are some differences, and one of the differences...
We don't torture. That's
a big difference.
Sure.
And there are some differences of intent, and also there's some differences of alliances, as you've pointed out. I mean, when we started the terrorist trial report card, the idea was to embarrass the Department of Justice. Halfway through it, we realized that really it was a different story than we'd started out finding, and everybody had already gotten into their corners, and the corners aren't the same, because now the issue of civilian and military trials has put people who debated how we try domestic cases into, sort of on the same idea that we want to use civilian courts. And so it's kind of a weird realignment, which, all I'm saying is, this could happen down the road with the renewal of the Patriot Act.
Sure,
So
sure.
maybe.
Point well taken. This is why you need the academics to bridle the advocates.
No, it's called a moderator.